Hi, I'm Ruth Martin, and I'm going to be reading from Clearing by Iris Wolff, which is published in the UK by Moth Books and comes out on the 4th of June. It's the second of Iris's novels to be translated into English and published by Moth. This is the first, Blurred, which came out last year, and I also really recommend that. But I'm going to be reading from Clearing, which is the story of Lev and Kato, two friends, possibly more than friends, who we meet when they're in their 30s. And the story is told in reverse, so we follow them gradually back into their childhood, back to the village in northern Romania where they grew up, and find out how they became the people that they are today. And this section that I'm going to read is about Lev's grandmother, who is quite a big influence in his life. His grandmother lived at the other end of the village. This other end lay a little higher up the hill, and because higher always meant better, the villagers at the top end felt superior. The most northerly part of the country was no different to the big cities. Those living higher up were better able to defend themselves from an attack, had fresher air and a nicer view. The bottom, as everyone knew, was where the murky sediment settled, be that people or wine. Lev's mother would have preferred to have more streets, or even better, whole villages between her and Bunica. At least they lived far enough apart to have to put an extra layer on to visit. When you go to see your in-laws, you should have to put a coat on, as Liz liked to say. They would probably never admit it, but Lev suspected that the two women liked each other. Even if they didn't, they had at least grown used to each other over the years. His grandmother might emphasise her superiority, the position of her house, her life experience, her nationality, and on such occasions Liz's face would harden, but when it really mattered, they could rely on one another. Bunica praised Lev's mother as little as possible. When she did, she would say, "Your mother has golden hands," and it was true. Liz could sew, knit, embroider, and when she decorated cakes or dyed eggs with onion skins, people were amazed by her care and artistry. Liz, in turn, had to acknowledge that Bunica gave good advice in difficult situations. In fact, she gave good advice even before you knew you were in difficulties. She kept the source of her knowledge to herself. Once, when Lev was still at school, she'd given him a warning. In the not-too-distant future, she said, someone would come to his classroom and take him to the headmaster's office, but the headmaster would leave at once. The two gentlemen sitting there would, very politely, ask to speak to him, though only one of them would speak, the other would practice his staring. The one who spoke would say, "This gentleman would like to know," prefacing all kinds of questions this way, as if the other man was mute or simply too important to open his own mouth. Lev wasn't to be alarmed, but to every question he should reply, "I don't know." And if he noticed a waning in politeness, he should ask to be taken back to his classroom. If they ignored his request, he was to say that he'd tell his brothers about this conversation, and to give them his brothers' names. When he asked who these gentlemen were, and what they wanted with him, his grandmother said it was better if he didn't know. How would he recognise them? By their grey suits, their fine leather shoes. And so Lev had not been surprised to encounter them in the headmaster's office a few weeks after that conversation.